so I go at my pace. All right. Hello. All right. Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. Volker Türk, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, briefed the Security Council by video teleconference this morning on the protection of hospitals in Gaza. He said that the destruction of hospitals across Gaza goes beyond depriving Palestinians of their right to access adequate health care. Those hospitals provided sanctuary for thousands of people with nowhere else to go. He said that across Gaza, Israeli military operations in and around hospitals and associated combat have had a terrible impact, precisely at a time of massive demands on healthcare due to the ongoing conflict. He added that according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, more than 1,050 medical professionals have been killed in Gaza. The High Commissioner is calling for independent, thorough, and transparent investigations into all Israeli attacks on hospitals, healthcare infrastructure, and medical personnel, as well as the alleged misuse of such facilities. Rick Pieperkorn, the World Health Organization representative in the occupied Palestinian territory, also briefed the Security Council on Gaza. He said that some 7% of Gaza's population has been killed in the past 14 months fighting, while many others have suffered life-changing injuries. The healthcare system is being pushed to the breaking point, he added, with only 16 of Gaza's 36 hospitals remaining partially functioning. Dr. Pieperkorn added that more than 12,000 people in Gaza still require medical evacuation, which means, at the current rate, it would take 5 to 10 years to evacuate all the critically ill patients. Meanwhile, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warns that civilians are facing heightened pressure to relocate yet again within the Gaza Strip. Today, the Israeli authorities ordered those staying in the Al-Bureij area of Deir al-Balah Governorate to move west, citing rocket fire into Israel. The Israeli authorities continue to deny UN attempts to coordinate aid workers' movement within Gaza. Today, 6 out of 10 coordination attempts were rejected outright. Of the remaining 4, only 2 went ahead fully, while the other 2 encountered serious impediments. Among the rejected attempts today was our plan to deliver supplies to the besieged areas of North Gaza Governorate. OCHA says the denial of humanitarian assistance, especially to survivors who remain in North Gaza, is a push factor for further displacement. OCHA reminds us that most people across the Gaza Strip have already been displaced multiple times. They are often forced to flee amid intense bombardment with almost none of their belongings. Also, people are pressured to move into unsafe areas that lack the basics for human survival. In this situation, humanitarian organizations are doing everything they possibly can to support people wherever they are. The World Health Organization reports that 55 patients and 72 companions were evacuated from Gaza on Tuesday for medical treatment in the United Arab Emirates. Over 5,300 patients have been evacuated abroad since October 2023, leaving over 12,000 patients still awaiting evacuation. UNRWA's Commissioner General, Philippe Lazzarini, said today that the Israeli Knesset bill to ban the agency from operating in the occupied Palestinian territory is due to come into effect in less than 4 weeks. Mr. Lazzarini emphasized that UNRWA's teams are meanwhile committed to stay and deliver. Since October 2023, UNRWA has provided 6.7 million medical consultations in Gaza, over 1,600 consultations per day. Some 730,000 people have received mental health and psychosocial support thanks to UNRWA. And with partners, the agency vaccinated 560,000 children under the age of 10 against polio. In addition, nearly 2 million people have received food assistance, hundreds of thousands of displaced people have stayed in UNRWA shelters, and since the summer, UNRWA's teams have reached 18,000 children with learning activities. Our peacekeeping colleagues in Lebanon are telling us that operations by the Israeli Defense Forces north of the Blue Line have continued, including with movements reported further north in Sector East. A redeployment by the Lebanese armed forces was conducted this week in Shama in Sector West. Israel and Lebanon have recommitted to full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. To address outstanding issues, we urge both parties to utilize the newly established mechanism as agreed in the understanding. UNIFIL also continues to urge the timely withdrawal of the IDF and deployment of the Lebanese armed forces in southern Lebanon and the full implementation of Resolution 1701 as a comprehensive path towards peace. The mission stands ready to play its role in supporting both countries to meet their obligations and in monitoring progress. This includes ensuring that the area south of the Litani River is free of any armed personnel, assets, or weapons other than those of the government of Lebanon and UNIFIL, as well as respect for the Blue Line. Peacekeepers will continue their mandated tasks, including the monitoring and reporting to the Security Council of all violations of Resolution 1701. Meanwhile, we and our humanitarian partners continue to provide critical support in Lebanon to those still displaced or returning to their communities following the cessation of hostilities. The International Organization for Migration estimates that nearly 124,000 people remain displaced, while over 4,000 people remain in 42 shelters. On cross-border movements with Syria, as we have mentioned before, the UN Refugee Agency reports that according to local authorities, 90,000 people, including 20,000 Lebanese nationals, have arrived in Hermel in northeastern Lebanon. Of these, more than 39,000 are living in 175 collective sites and are in urgent need of assistance. For its part, the World Food Programme says that in 2024, it reached 750,000 people displaced by fighting. It supplied hot meals, food supplies, and cash assistance in shelters and communities across Lebanon. WFP is currently pre-positioning food supplies as close as possible to hard-to-reach areas. For example, a warehouse has been leased in the Bekaa to ensure access during winter snows. WFP has facilitated 17 interagency convoys, delivering vital humanitarian aid to conflict-affected families since September 23rd. In Syria, UNHCR has distributed core relief and winter items to returnee families in Damascus, Homs, and Idlib governments, as well as to internally displaced people living in collective centers and unfinished buildings across Raqqa and Al-Hasaka governorates. Meanwhile, WFP has swiftly readjusted its capacity to continue providing regular monthly assistance to 700,000 severely food insecure people, including food and nutrition assistance and school meals, while also expanding relief to newly displaced populations. WFP is planning to provide food and nutrition assistance to 2.8 million people in the coming weeks. Turning to Myanmar, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the crisis there is deepening. Conflict persists in many parts of the country, and the fighting in Rakhine has recently escalated. Civilians continue to face extreme risks, acute food insecurity, and a total collapse of critical public services. Conflict has driven more than 3.5 million people from their homes, marking a staggering increase of nearly 1.5 million internally displaced persons compared to last year. As a reminder, at the end of 2024, the nearly $1 billion humanitarian needs and response plan was funded at only 36%. This year, humanitarian needs in Myanmar are expected to reach unprecedented levels, with nearly 20 million people in need of assistance, compared to last year's 18.6 million. The 2025 Humanitarian Response Plan aims to reach 5.5 million people with assistance, requiring funding of $1.1 billion. The Food and Agriculture Organization reported today that the benchmark for world food commodity prices declined in December compared to the previous month, led down by a drop in international sugar quotations. For 2024 as a whole, the index recorded 122 points, 2.1% lower than the average value in 2023, offsetting significant decreases in quotations for cereals and sugar, with smaller but not insignificant increases in prices for vegetable oils, dairy, and meats. The United Nations is calling for nominations for the 2025 United Nations Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela Prize. This prize is given out every 5 years to two individuals, a woman and a man from different geographic regions. The prize acknowledges individuals who dedicate their lives to the service of humanity by promoting the purposes and principles of the United Nations. It also honors Nelson Mandela's legacy of reconciliation, political transition, and social transformation. The prize is selected by a United Nations committee chaired by the President of the General Assembly and representatives of 6 member states, plus 5 eminent advisors. The Department of Global Communications serves as the committee's secretariat. Online nominations for the prize will be accepted until the 28th of February 2025. The award ceremony will be in New York at the annual commemoration for Nelson Mandela Day on the 18th of July. And tomorrow is World Braille Day. This day is observed to raise awareness of the importance of Braille as a means of communication in the full realization of human rights for blind and partially sighted people. That's it for me. Do we have any questions? Yes, Deji.
Okay. New York Times reported that UN is planning to shutter the office of UNRWA in West Bank as well as in Gaza. Can you confirm that? Is that what I asked yesterday about the further plan for UN? And if those offices was closed, what are you going to replace UNRWA's role in Gaza as well as West Bank?
Well, while you were coming in, I pointed out that the Commissioner General of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, said that the Knesset bill banning UNRWA's activities is due to come into effect in less than 4 weeks. He has emphasized that UNRWA's teams are still committed to stay and deliver. And I gave a number of facts and figures about the work that UNRWA has been doing over the past year, but it's considerable. From our point of view, UNRWA, and we've said this many times, is the backbone of the humanitarian response, and we believe it to be irreplaceable. A collapse of its operations, should this legislation take effect, would lead to immense suffering for people already enduring extreme hardship.
But do you have confirmation that UN is thinking of shutting down the operation there?
As I said, UNRWA is committed to stay and deliver. It is continuing to go about its work. We are continuing to emphasize the importance of its work.
Which means the New York Times report is not that accurate.
We are going about the work as best we can. The Secretary General has made very clear that under international law, if UNRWA is not able to go about its mandated tasks, Israel, as the occupying power, would have to take on those responsibilities. Is that it? If that's it, have a good Friday.
Farhan.
Okay. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry to ruin your weekend. Couple quick questions I wanted to sneak in. Following up on Deji's question, I've been asking this from the start since the Knesset passed their anti-UNRWA laws, whether there'd be any discussions to try to meet somewhere in the middle. And it seems at this point that it's almost a game of chicken at this point. And Israel is moving forward, and UNRWA says that, it can't do that. And it doesn't, it seems like everybody is set in their positions. I mean, what happens at this point? Is there any talk at all about trying to reach some sort of compromise on this, or is it going to come down to a game of chicken till the final day?
I wouldn't call anything involving the lives of several million people as a game of chicken. We are saying that we are committed to helping the people as we can, and UNRWA is committed to continuing its work. If, for whatever reason, it's unable to do that, the Secretary General has already made clear to the member states that UNRWA operates under a General Assembly mandate, and it would be up to the General Assembly to determine how to respond.
So I just want to be clear, there's no talks ongoing on reaching any sort of compromise, is that correct?
What we are saying is that there's no way, and we're saying this just as a matter of fact, there's no way in terms of the manpower we have at our disposal, in terms of the connections to the communities that we have at our disposal, that we could replicate in any sort of short order the sort of functions that UNRWA does on the ground.
Okay, second question and final one. There again last night, overnight, was a ballistic missile fired by the Houthis into Israeli territory. It was shot down with shrapnel landing over an Israeli city. There was also a drone which was intercepted outside of Israeli airspace. Again, a pattern here, no comment from the Secretary General. This has been consistent with the lack of comments on Hezbollah's drip fire every day for a year, and now with the Houthis' daily fire. So one would reach the conclusion here that one of two things is going on. Number one, that the Secretary General will wait until there is an inevitable Israeli response, at which point he'll release a statement, as is his pattern, equivocating the two, or he's incapable of reaching the conclusion that this daily fire is going to draw an inevitable Israeli response that'll lead to bad humanitarian consequences. I mean, why does he refuse to speak out until there is an Israeli response to this daily fire?
We have spoken out against the firing, including, by the way, from the very start of the Hezbollah fire, about the firing from Lebanon into Israel. We believe that
when Israel responds,
we believe that there should be no firing by any parties into Israeli territory. The right of the Israeli people to have their sovereignty and their territorial integrity is of clear and fundamental. We believe it should be respected. Obviously, Israel has the right to self-defense if it faces attack from outside parties. We've been clear about that throughout. Obviously, we also have been clear about the need by Israel as well as other parties to avoid any escalation, and we want all parties to do their utmost to avoid escalation and to avoid any civilian casualties.
I've only seen, I shouldn't say I've only seen, there have only been two statements distributed by the UN from the Secretary General on the Houthis firing on Israeli territory, and both of those came after Israel's response, and both of those equivocated the Houthis firing with the Israeli response. I mean, it's just a fact. So when the UN says...
I wouldn't call it equivocation. We want all parties to do their utmost to avoid further escalation. We want all parties to avoid further civilian casualties. And Mike, you know from the noon briefings that here at this podium, we do speak out regularly against the attacks coming in from the Houthis and from Hezbollah, and have done so since the beginning of this crisis.
Thank you, Farhan. Have a good weekend.
All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. Take care.